Welcome to a WalterFootball.com fantasy football mock draft for the 2021 season. This is a half PPR format with 12 teams. I'm joined once again by Jacob Camenker from the Sporting News. Jacob, how are you?
I'm doing pretty great. I had my official first fantasy draft last night, executed the strategy pretty well. I took Derrick Henry first overall, surprised everyone. So that I'm feeling pretty good about it, and no one knew what I was going to do. And now I'm going to have some fun with this mock and prepare for drafting sixth overall instead of first.
Nice. I actually want to ask you why you made that decision. It's interesting to hear. But this is about to begin in 10 seconds. I'll quickly say go to walterfootball.com for more content. Please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. We have a link in the description to our merch store, so check that out if you want to support the show as well. I'm drafting 10th because I think it's harder to draft later, and I was drafting first in our mock draft yesterday. This is the first half PPR format that we've done. And I guess no surprise that McCaffrey, Kamara, Cook, and Henry go off the board. You're up in one pick, so yeah, that was pretty fast. I guess you want to summarize what you're going to say and also why you took Henry first.
Yeah, so I took Henry first because it boils down to a few different things. One, I like his offensive line better. Two, I'm just a little worried about Sam Darnold, the quarterback. Like, if he does not improve, then that's going to limit McCaffrey's ceiling because the opposing defense is going to be able to focus on him. Now, I know that doesn't take away his value entirely, but he has to go up against the Bucs twice. They usually have his number pretty good, and if Darnold flops, I feel like that's going to be a worse scenario than if Tannehill doesn't have a great game. And I just think that Henry, his ceiling's higher, or not his ceiling, his floor is higher. Ceiling's probably higher with McCaffrey, but I worry a bit about the injury and just about his surroundings. And tiebreaker for me is always the offensive line. So that's why I went with Derrick Henry. He's led the league in rushes, rushing yards, rushing touchdowns the last 3 years. And I know that would normally mean like, oh, he's a risk for injury. But I don't know. I think this dude is literally just built different. Like, he is a battering ram of a human being. And if I'm wrong, I'll eat crow on that. But that was the logic behind taking him number one overall. It was a surprise, and I know I'm in the minority here, but I just think he's going to have a big year, and he's just proven to be so consistent over the years.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think you can make a bear case for any running back chosen in the first round. Kenny and I talked about that yesterday, including McCaffrey, which you just said. Yes, Sam Darnold is a concern. He did not look good in the preseason game. I know he posted good stats, but he was going against backup defense, and he was struggling for a while to score. It looked pretty brutal for the Panthers. Maybe that changes in the regular season, but you're right. That is a worry. And also, yeah, they played Tampa twice, and yeah, the Buccaneers really do a good job of shutting down McCaffrey. So yeah, we'll see. I don't know if this screen froze for me, but it looks like okay. Davante Adams just went off the board. Austin Eckler is my top player in half PPR, and he's still here. But even still, I think I'd have a tough time passing on a running back, given how thin the position is. It's something that Kenny ran into yesterday. He was drafting 11th, I believe, and his running back core, and he even said it. He was like really disappointed in it. And I remember you drafting late last week, and you were disappointed in your running back core. I think you were 12th. It's just so difficult to find running backs down here. I think I'm going to double up on running backs, even though I have two receivers ranked above the top running back right now.
Yeah, and I agree. And I know we both thought running back depth was decent this year earlier in the offseason, but it's thinned out a bit with a couple of the injuries. I went with Nick Chubb because I think he's the safest of those tier 2 backs, and he runs behind the best offensive line. But I think in my draft yesterday, I went 4 running backs in the first 5 picks. I do that a lot in fantasy drafts because usually one of your top 3 running backs is going to have some sort of issue. So it's good to have a third one in reserve. And I feel like the receiver value is always better down the board. You can always find good receivers, but running backs this year, yeah, they're definitely thin. I think they're not as thin as they were last year, but they've gotten thinner as the offseason's gone along. I don't think you can get high quality ones in the 4th and 5th round like we were earlier in the summer.
Yeah, so I said I was going to go double running back. I didn't anticipate both Gibson and Harris going off the board. Some of the top running backs I have left, I think I can get in round 3. I want to see if I can do it. And the top player available for me by far is DeAndre Hopkins. I love Hopkins this year. I love everything about Arizona this year. I think Kyler Murray could win MVP. I think he's a good bet at like 16-1, I think, whatever. And I think Hopkins, that's going to translate to him having a great season. So I'm going to see if I can get one of the running backs I want at the end of round 3. And I think some of the top guys available might fall to me, but I could be wrong. I think it's a good experiment.
Yeah, in the rankings I used for last night's mock, which is a composite of your rankings and Sporting News' rankings, I make half PPR rankings by taking one standard set and a PPR set and averaging them together, basically. Not that I wanted to reveal that secret to any of my league mates. So if you're watching, you didn't hear that. But yeah, and Hopkins ended up being the number 6 player ranked. He was one of the top receivers, if not the top receiver on the board. And he went late in the second round for us. I've been surprised he's falling that much. I think there's a good chance he could be the top receiver. Like you said, Arizona with Kyler Murray, if Kyler Murray stays healthy, that offense is going to be potent. And I think Hopkins, he's super consistent. He catches a ton of passes. So I really like that pick there. Having him and Eckler, that's going to give you a good core. And I still think, at the end of that third round, you're going to have a shot at a good running back, I would think.
We'll see. So you're on the clock right after this. Curious to hear your thoughts on why you think Hopkins is sliding later than both of us think he should. I really can't think of a good reason, but you're on the clock anyway. So it's your pick.
Yeah, I'm not loving the top 2 running backs ranked on Fantasy Calculator right now. I don't like the Bengals, and I have concerns about the Colts too. So I'm not going Jonathan Taylor or Joe Mixon. I would take Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who I took at the very end of the second round with my second pick last night. He's, again, guy running behind an elite offensive line in a very good offense. He'll catch passes from Patrick Mahomes. He just has to stay healthy, and he should be good. I mean, we saw his upside. Granted, it was in the first game last year against the Texans, who were horrible against the run. But I think running behind better offensive line with a year of experience under his belt and not dealing with an injury, I think Edwards-Helaire should be better. So I like him as an RB2 here. As for Hopkins, I don't understand why he's going as late as he is, because I think what it is people get caught up in the Tyreek Hill's like the big play threat. Devontae Adams is going to catch a ton of passes, and Stephon Diggs does the same thing. DeAndre Hopkins is kind of a combination of both. He can make big plays downfield, and he catches a lot of passes, but he doesn't do both things or either thing at like the highest level possible. So I think that's knocking him further down the top 5 receivers, but I mean, the balance is not a bad thing. I just think it's some people like guys who get a ton of receptions. Some people like the speed threat. The combo guys we tend to see fall just a little bit. That's just my experience with it.
Yeah, it could be. Also, like Arizona is not the biggest market, so maybe that is a reason. But yeah, it kind of makes sense. I still don't get like why he's going later. Like it shouldn't be the case. I like your Edwards-Helaire pick. I think that's who I would have taken if Hopkins were off the board. Although that probably means either Diggs or one of the running backs is still left. But I do like the Edwards-Helaire pick. He comes with a lot of risk, but every running back does, really. So yeah, I like that pick because of the huge upside. Playing in Kansas City's offense just means he could go off. But yeah, so the first 2 rounds are complete. I don't like hate any pick. I don't like the Travis Kelce selection. I don't hate it, but I don't like it very much because you're going to be thin at running back. So curious to see what happens to Team 9, because they went receiver, tight end, and they don't have a running back yet.
Yeah, and I'm being told in the group chat here that Team 9's computer froze him out, so that might be a computer picking, unfortunately, because I was looking forward to learning a little bit about that as well, but looks like we will not be having a chance to do that.
Yeah, it was funny. My friend BB is in the draft yesterday, and he's super against taking tight ends before like round 12 or 13, and he got kicked out, and they gave him 3 tight ends. So it was pretty funny how that turned out. So you're on the clock.
Yeah, I was actually going to take Terry McLaurin, so that's a very astute pick by Randy Marsh apparently is in this mock draft. Well done, Randy. So I'm going to pivot to the next best receiver on the board. I like 2 guys a lot here. I think oh man, this is a tough decision, but I think I'm going to go with another guy. This my team's theme is like going to be high floor a lot. I'm going with Allen Robinson here. I just like he's produced with bad quarterbacks before, and eventually Justin Fields is going to take over for Andy Dalton there. So I think his ceiling is as high as ever, and I think you can't go wrong with him as a number one receiver. He always produces at a top 15 level. So getting him in the middle of the third round, that gives my team a really solid core. So I think Chubb and Robinson are very safe. And Edwards-Helaire is a great situation. Like you said, there's a lot of risk with him. But I think this team is really high upside, but also has a high enough floor that I'm not going to be in trouble at any point early on in the season at least.
Yeah, I like the Robinson pick. I'm excited to see what he does with Justin Fields because he's never had a good quarterback throwing to him. He's had like Blake Bortles and Mitchell Trubisky and Nick Foles, although Kenny might take umbrage with me saying Nick Foles is not good. So, all right, Patrick Mahomes went. I don't like that pick at all. So, Team 9, again, computer, but still, it's pretty brutal not to take a running back. Miles Sanders is someone I talked about yesterday. I don't know why he's dropping as well. I think he's super talented. I understand that, the Eagles they've had a running back by committee before, but they have a new coaching staff, and Sanders was held out of the preseason finale. They ran Boston Scott, they ran Kenneth Gainwell, but they did not use Sanders at all. I think that means Sanders might get a higher workload than people think. What are your thoughts on Sanders?
Yeah, I like Sanders too. He actually went where I took Clyde Edwards-Helaire today. Sanders went there in my draft last night. I'm not quite that high on him, but I think in the third round, you're not going to find much better of a pick. I mean, at running back, because he runs behind a good offensive line if it's healthy. Granted, that was a problem last year, but they're going to rely on running a lot because Jalen Hurts, is somewhat inaccurate as a passer, or at least struggles with consistency, but can run. So that's going to open up lanes for Sanders. So I think he's going to be a really good weapon, and you got a chance to add to your core now because you're on the clock again.
Yeah, I'm going to go another running back. I like the receivers in round 5, 6, 7, like in that range. So I think I can go running back again. I have not drafted this guy yet. Well, we haven't even seen him in the preseason. Mike Davis. He's going to catch a lot of passes in Atlanta with Matt Ryan having a worse offensive line. So I think that means more dump offs. So I like Davis in this half PPR format. Damian Harris just went. I wanted to hear your opinion on him now with Cam Newton gone and Mac Jones as the starter.
Yeah, I like Damian Harris a lot now. I mean, he's looked excellent in the preseason. The Patriots have a top 5 offensive line in the NFL, and they're going to rely on their running game to support Mac Jones. I think Jones is going to be very consistent and very fine at quarterback, but the more and better they can run it, the better off they're going to be. So Harris could end up being a steal here. I know Belichick likes to mix up his running backs, and they have really good depth at the position, but Team 8, I can't read what that says. I have to pick up new glasses tomorrow, but him as RB3, I think you're going to be in good shape.
Okay, you're on the clock for round 4.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn on what to do here. I think I'm going to take a receiver. I think the best player I have on the board is Cooper Kupp. Look, half PPR, he's going to be great. I think he has averaged 129 targets per year the last 2 years, and he's getting an upgrade at quarterback. So, I mean, you cannot lose with that. So long as he stays healthy, he'll be a threat for 100 catches and 1,000 yards. I would have been fine with him or Robert Woods. Woods actually went off the board already. Dr. Feelbad at number 12 took CeeDee Lamb and Robert Woods. Those were 2 guys I considered in where I took Robinson. Lamb and Robinson was my big choice there. And I went with Robinson because of the higher floor, but I like Lamb's upside a lot. He's going to be the best receiver on the Cowboys, I think.
Yeah, I love Lamb as well. It sounds like I love Lamb. I love Lamb as well. That's a good pick. I like Dr. Feelbad's team so far. We'll see how it turns out, but he's good at running back, and it's a good start to his receiving core. I also wanted to hear your opinion on the Cam Newton getting cut and Mac Jones being the starter. Because it just happened today, and you live in that area. So, what do you think about that move?
I was shocked that they cut him. I thought that Newton's leading the quarterback battle, just based off what Bill Belichick had said. He had said that Cam was the starter, and he, as recently as last week, before Cam was absent for practice for 5 days, had said, like, someone's going to have to outplay Cam Newton to take the starting job. And Josh McDaniels had said it looks like Cam's the starter. That changed during the third preseason game, I think, because Newton didn't look that good in limited action. And then Mac Jones played really, really well. So I think they kind of felt like, all right, I guess if things are equal, why not roll with Jones because he's under contract longer and cheaper. I'm surprised that they didn't keep Newton as a backup, but I guess their concern about that was, he's a well-respected veteran, and having him behind Jones, if Jones struggles, could cause locker room tension. I don't know what to make of the move in and of itself. I'm happy with starting Jones, but cutting Newton was shocking, and it sounds like they didn't really try to trade him, so I don't know exactly how to feel about that.
Yeah, I think it would be tough to trade him, because it's like you can't really find a logical spot for him right now as a starter. I mean, some team might want him as his backup, but if that's the case, then they can just sign him cheaper. There's some talk that he might go to Dallas or something because Dallas doesn't have a good backup. But anyway, you took Kyler Murray. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I was looking at the board, and there are some guys that I like here, but I wanted to see what my team would look like here if I did take Kyler Murray, because as you mentioned earlier, he could have an MVP campaign. I love the offense there, and he's going to scramble a ton and score a ton of touchdowns, especially, they have a goal line back type in James Conner, and Chase Edmonds can score as well, but I think Murray will take a lot of touchdowns near the goal line. So I'm seeing what happens if I take a quarterback in the 5th round. Will it kill my depth at the flex position? That's where we're going to see. Depends what gets back to being around 6 and 7. But where I have 2 really good running backs, I'm comfortable with doing this at this point.
Okay, that's cool. I think I like experimenting, in these mock drafts. So I'm on the clock again. I was actually really considering Kareem Hunt, even though he'd be my 4th running back. Just because there's really no depth at the position. But he's off the board. I think I'm going to go receiver. So we had Deante Johnson taken. I'm going to go with the other Steeler receiver after Ben Roethlisberger looked great in that second preseason game. I already like the Steeler receivers, and now we get Roethlisberger looking like it's 2010 again. The last time the Steelers were in the Super Bowl. So we'll see. I mean, Claypool was amazing in his rookie year, and he's just going to get better, I think. Chase Edmonds was another guy I was considering there. Even again, he's going to be my 4th running back. So I like that pick a lot by 2 for flinching. Like I said, running back is so thin, and right now there's in my top 20 players, there are 2 running backs left, and they're both backups. So yeah, or one's a backup, one is shares the role. Sermon is the backup. So yeah, the running back is super thin already, and I'm glad I went 3 running backs in the first 4 rounds.
Yeah, I definitely like the idea of going 3 running backs in the first 4 rounds. I did 4 in the first 5 the other night. That's a viable strategy. If you can get your receiving targets late, if you can pick the right sleepers, that can pan out because it gives you just so much depth at running back, gives you a leg up on the competition. And, running backs always emerge on the waiver wire, but if you're not positioned well, it just ends up being a problem. So, if Kareem Hunt had been available for you, I probably would have taken him there. It's too good of a value at that point. But I love the Claypool pick. He's a guy I would have considered where I took Murray, but decided to go with Murray.
So I'm on the clock again. I went with this guy yesterday. I'm going to take him once more. Antonio Brown is I think is pretty good fantasy value considering when he played with Tampa last year and got integrated in the offense, he was getting as many targets and catches as the other 2 guys. And given that he's the quote unquote 3rd receiver, he's going a lot later than Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. I just think compared to those guys, I think he provides, pretty good value. I think, especially in a half PPR format.
Yeah, I actually took Antonio Brown in the 6th round of my draft last night for that very reason. I think the value there is good. And there have been reports out of camp from various people that Antonio Brown has been the best receiver at Tampa Bay's camp at times. So I think that's encouraging for him. That's something that I'm very comfortable taking him at that point, as opposed to targeting Evans or Godwin earlier. And I just took Odell Beckham Jr. I know I have Nick Chubb, so there's a lot of cannibalism there within that backfield, but or the backfield receiver combination. But where Beckham's a guy I would rotate in and out of my flex spot depending on the matchup, I think his upside's too high to pass on at this point. Now, I was hoping maybe Antonio Brown would get to me, but that didn't happen as you scooped him off the board. So I think Beckham was the best receiver on the board for me by far. So I'm happy to take him at this point.
Yeah, I mean, we saw what he did against Dallas last year, back when he was healthy. Would you agree? I'm looking at like the round 5 and 6 picks. Would you agree that Michael Carter is the worst pick in these 2 rounds? Because, like he has upside because he might be the starting running back eventually, but right now he's not. And it might be a timeshare with Ty Johnson and Tevin Coleman. I don't think I would take Carter anywhere near the 6th round. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't do that. I'm actually not a fan of the Mark Andrews pick really either. I think the top 3 tight ends that went in the first 3 rounds, I'm happy to do that. After that, though, I would just wait on the tight end position. Like, I'm just not really big on any of these guys, with the exception of Logan Thomas, who I've talked about ad nauseum on this show. So I think both of those picks kind of, after a good start for the 7th team, ET there, the first 4 rounds, I'm not a big fan of the 5th or 6th round. Carter has upside, but I think it's too early for him. I think you're right.
Yeah, I mean, you could get similar players a couple rounds later, and quite frankly, I don't even know if I'd take Carter a couple rounds later. I think, for me, it would be like 10th round or something. You're on the clock for round 7.
Yeah, this happened again. Zach Moss went 2 picks before Devin Singletary, and I don't understand that. Singletary's been the better of the backs through the preseason. He's more explosive. He's a better pass catcher. I get it. Moss could play on the goal line more. Singletary's a bit lighter or slighter frame. So I get the touchdown projections aren't going to be as good for Singletary, but still, I mean, he's just so explosive. Having him as a 3rd running back here on a very good offense, I'm comfortable with that. Maybe I end up regretting it again, as I did last year when I took Devin Singletary and Zach Moss ate into his workload a lot, but I don't know. I feel like Singletary is the better of those 2 backs, and he's not getting enough credit.
Yeah, I agree. And we saw it in their preseason finale. Like, Singletary was on the field for their entire first drive. Like, granted, he didn't get any carries, but they didn't run the ball at all. They just wanted to throw. But he was the primary back. And then once he left, he never returned. And it was Zach Moss and Matt Breida handling the workload. So, I agree. I don't understand why Moss is going before Singletary. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And I like that pick. That was the other running back I was talking about who I was considering. So I don't like any of the running backs left, which means I should probably go receiver. And so I was hoping to get this guy yesterday, and I didn't. So I'm going to make sure I do. Marcus Callaway is the number 1 receiver on the Saints. He looked phenomenal with Jameis Winston. He looked good last year when Michael Thomas was injured, and Michael Thomas was just put on the PUP list, or at least I think he's expected to go on the PUP list. I think Callaway looks great right now, and I'm happy to take him in the 7th round because I think he could produce like a 4th or 5th rounder.
Yeah, I think Callaway is a great mid-round value. Stacking him with Jameis Winston, I think, is the move because you can get those guys pretty cheap comparatively. My dad did that in the 9th and 10th round the other day, and I got very, very upset because I wanted to do that, but he beat me to the punch on it. So I think that's definitely a good move, and you're on the clock again.
Yeah, so Stevenson just went off the board. He was someone I was going to consider like maybe a couple rounds later. I don't know if you were interested in him or not. I think that so Laviska Shenault just went. I think is Chark. Yeah, DJ Chark's still available. So I'm going to take him. He's the number 1 receiver in Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence looked great in the preseason finale. I know he went against backups, but still, I mean, we expect Trevor Lawrence to play well. And Chark's going to be the number 1 guy. So I'm happy to take him as my 5th receiver. So as I was saying before, I love the guys in the 5 through 7, maybe 8 round range for receivers. So just yet another reason to go running back early.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the receiver depth is really it's gotten clearer too, because there were a lot of guys that we were like, oh, I'm not sure about this guy, or oh, is he going to take the next step? But yeah, I think think they're all really good values at this point. And there just are no running back values really. Like you'll maybe find the occasional one, but not too many. I've screwed up here. I probably should have taken a receiver, but I like Devin Singletary. Needed a third running back, so I can't complain. But I was targeting Cortland Sutton, Laviska Shenault, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Marquez Callaway, and they're all gone. So I'm going to take a tight end because Logan Thomas is one of the best players left on the board in my estimation. This is going to make my running back and receiving cores a little bit thinner. So again, this is a little bit of an experiment. Let's see what type of depth and sleepers I can get now. But I love Logan Thomas. He's going to be a top 5 fantasy tight end. And I just, he came on last year really a lot in the second half of the year. And he's barely played tight end in his career. Like, I know he's 30, but he's just going to keep getting better and better.
Yeah, I mean, he's another guy who's going much later than he should be. If like Mark Andrews is going around 5, Logan Thomas should be going around that range. Not that I think Mark Andrews should go around 5. I think they should probably be going like round 7. And the fact that you got him round 8 is a good value for sure. To your point that you took Devin Singletary and you missed on those receivers. I have to think that Singletary would have been gone as well if you got back to your pick. Actually, I think I would have taken him with one of my selections. I wouldn't fret over the Singletary pick. I think it's fine. And, you have 3 good receivers. So, I think that's okay.
Yeah, the more I look at my receiving core, the more confident I am in it. Like, I don't know. I always have like retrospective regret, even if I make a good pick, if one of the guys I want goes. It's just one of the things about fantasy. You're like, oh, what if that was the wrong move?
Yeah, that's for sure. Like you never know. It's like hindsight, as Cam Newton once said, is 50-50. So,
yep.
So round 7 and 8 are done. I think my least favorite pick in this round is James Conner. Again, that's a computer pick. But we saw James Conner go off the board in a similar range yesterday. I just don't get it. He's the backup. He's not very good. It's the Chase Edmonds show, and especially in a half PPR, I just can't get behind James Conner in the 8th round.
Yeah, I think I took him in the 10th round of a standard draft we did, and he's really a touchdown upside guy. That's his biggest thing. But Kyler Murray's there to steal that from him potentially, and Chase Edmonds can take goal line carry. So I'm not big on him either. Like, he had a great season a couple years ago, but he's just never quite lived up to it there. I think behind a better offensive line, which we think the Cardinals might have, but we have to see Rodney Hudson in action and everything. I think he'll be a little bit better, but the carries aren't going to be there. That's the biggest problem.
Yeah. So you're on the clock for round 9.
Yeah, so I'm going to – oh, that doesn't make sense. Oh, boy. I've really backed myself into a corner. I'll explain how with my receiving choices, but I'm going to go with Gabe Davis because he's one of our favorite sleepers. This is now the second time I've paired one of my running backs with a top receiver in their offense, so I don't love doing that twice in a draft. You can get away with it once, but this happened to me in an earlier version of one of the mocks we did where I kept ending up with 2 guys on the same team, and that just limits your ceiling a little bit. But I think both players are very talented and they should be in good shape. And Davis is one of the best receivers left on the board, so I'm not going to complain about getting him at this point in the draft.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, I was going to maybe take him, even though he's going to be my 6th receiver. So I like that a lot. Mike Williams is another guy I was going to consider. So he's off the board as well. I don't know where this guy is going to go in real drafts, and maybe I should, I was thinking about not taking him here because I wanted to see where he would go. The problem is he's not in the database, which is Tyson Williams, the running back for the Ravens. So I'm going to say Travion Williams is that guy, which I did yesterday. He's the number 2 running back in Baltimore now. He looked great in the preseason, and the Ravens run the ball more than any other team. So he's someone I really want in the round 8 through 10 range. I know that I'm not going to get him in any of my drafts because he's the number 2 sleeper on my site, and I just talked him up. But I think that, given how great he looked and the situation he's in, I think he's someone you should probably try to get in the middle of the draft.
Yeah, I definitely like his upside. I drafted Gus Edwards in the third round of my other league, and I didn't go for a handcuff in that scenario. But if I had, I would have gone for Tyson Williams, because I think, if like he's going to produce regardless, and then if Edwards goes down, he'll be the number one back there. And they're not going to sign Todd Gurley by all accounts, too. So that was one concern, but. I think that is just a clear sign that they're very confident in what Williams can do for them.
Yeah, and I think he's someone you could have on your team. Like you can have both those guys on your team and not even really consider it a back like a handcuff, because they run the ball so much, as I said. And there are situations where they play a weak team where you can get away with starting two running backs from the same team. I've done that before when you expect a blowout, and it tends to work out. So it's something you could do. It's not ideal, but like it's not like the worst situation in the world. I'm gonna take another running back. Alexander Madison is I think one of the best players available. And again, this is that sort of situation that we talked about with Baltimore. The Vikings run the ball a lot as well, and Alexander Madison has shown that he can be a big producer when Dalvin Cook gets injured, and Cook has never lasted a full season. So I expect, if I get Madison on my roster, I expect him to start a few games, and if he does, he's my RB2 probably.
Yeah, no, I love Madison in the late rounds of the draft. I mean, he's just such a talented player. I mean, we were taking him in like the 7th round last year because we were like, if Dalvin Cook goes down, this guy is possibly an RB1. Like, he would have volume and everything. So I'm a big fan of getting him in the later stages of the draft, especially, if you don't get a lot of mid-round running backs. Like, I picked 5 in the first 8 rounds yesterday, but he's definitely a guy who would have been on my radar in this mock here.
Yeah, he's definitely someone with big upside, I think. So you're on the clock for round 10.
Yeah, so I'm thankful Darnell Mooney is off the board, because he was one of the better players ranked on my board, and I would have had him and Allen Robinson and the 2 receiver running back combination problem things, and that would have been a nightmare scenario for my team. So I'm going to take J.D. McKissic here. He's one of the best receiving backs left, so in half PPR he carries value. I think Antonio Gibson's going to eat into his target share a little bit. I think McKissic was either the 2nd or 3rd most targeted receiver for Washington last year. But, he's going to catch a lot of passes. He's going to be involved in the game plan. So I like having him. And, if Antonio Gibson has a recurrence of the turf toe issue that sidelined him last year, then McKissic will get a lot more work as the true third down back. He won't do a lot between the tackles, but in half-point PPR, I like McKissic in the 10th round here. I think it's a good value.
Yeah, he's someone I think you want in half PPR or PPR. He's always a great DraftKings play because he tends to be very cheap, and you could just plug him in and then use the remaining salary on some of the better guys. Because like those Mahomes stacks tend to be very expensive. As I was already looking at week 1 and like trying to stack Mahomes with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. Like, you really don't have that much money left over, so you need cheap guys like that.
Yeah, I have not looked at the DraftKings week 1 lineup yet, but I have a feeling that I'm going to probably take the stars and scrubs stack approach, because early in the season, like, anything can happen. So you want as many consistent producers as possible.
Yeah, that's for sure. Tony Jones came off the board. He's interesting. I think he's apparently the number 2 running back at the Saints. So I think it's a pretty good pick, I think. And yeah, as we're saying before, like James White, who's chosen a couple picks earlier, he's the same sort of guy as McKissic, and Nyheim Hines went a bit earlier than that, I think. Yeah, beginning in round 10. Those sort of guys you can have on your roster and have PPR or regular PPR.
Yeah, and I think the reason I went McKissic over James White is because the Patriots have Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris take a lot of carries, and they have JJ Taylor on the roster too, and he looked really good during the preseason. Washington just has Antonio Gibson, JD McKissic, and I'm pretty sure Jarrett Patterson's the other one left. I'm on the clock again. I'm going to take Amon-Ra St. Brown. He might be the Lions' number 1 receiver. He has a ton of upside. He's looked really good during camp. He was a 4th round pick in last year's draft, but he probably should have gone earlier. I think he might follow in the mold of the USC receivers who go later than they should in the draft and end up producing pretty well. So I'll take a chance on him as my 5th receiver, and that gives me some nice depth with the upside and guys I can rotate in place of Odell Beckham Jr. in case he struggles or the Browns have a tough matchup.
Yeah, I like St. Brown. He's on my sleepers page, so he's someone I would have considered here. So I could go with the quarterback. But then again, like I guess Dr. Feelbad doesn't have a quarterback yet either. And I guess I'll just I think I'll go with Jameis Winston. Not exciting or anything, but I get to pair him with Marcus Callaway, so that's a plus. And Winston, as we saw before, like while he can be an interception machine, he can also be a great fantasy producer as well. Like 30 touchdowns was pretty good, 5,000 yards, so he can definitely do it. And he's someone, as we're talking about with DraftKings, something I liked doing before was in 2019, I would play Winston and with one of his receivers, and then I would play the opposing defense because if the opposing defense would pick 6 Winston, it'd be a lot of points for the defense, and then Winston would have to throw a lot. So there's always a strategy I like.
That is one of the few contrarian defense quarterback stacks that will ever work. Yeah. And I do love that strategy. I think he'll be better now with, the year or two learning under Sean Payton. It's basically been about a year and a half. And he also had the LASIK surgery too, to help his eyes out. So, if he's seeing better, that's definitely got to help him out.
Yeah, I think so. I expect him to play better for sure. I don't know if he's going to suddenly transform to this great quarterback or anything, but I do expect the turnovers to be cut down. So I don't know if that's the strategy I'm going to pursue this season, but we'll see. Maybe he's still an interception machine. So I guess we'll just play it by ear. I'm kind of confused about why Dallas Goedert still available? Yeah, Dallas Goedert still available. I know there's a conflict with Miles Sanders, but this late in the draft, it shouldn't matter. Goddard should not be available this late. There's talk. We were talking before we started recording that Zach Ertz might be headed somewhere. So that's trending on Twitter. Not saying that's for sure or anything, but I have a hard time seeing Goddard not outproduce Ertz this year, and I think he's going to have a good season. And you're on the clock anyway.
Yeah, I need another running back pretty badly. I'm going to take JaMychal Hasty from the 49ers here. This is more of like a backup if Raheem Mostert has to miss time or Trey Sermon has to miss time. Hasty's now the guy. They cut Wayne Gallman today. Hasty's looked good during the preseason, and he was their 5th string running back last year, and he had to play, and he looked really good. Like Kyle Shanahan can turn basically any running back into gold. So 12th round, I need someone with upside. Hasty, has a lot of it. It's just a matter of whether or not he's going to get any actual carries at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely upside. You want to swing for the fences with these picks. And Big Hasty is someone I like, because the 49ers, you never know what they're going to do at running back. Like, obviously, Mostert and Sermon are the heavy favorites. But, Mostert doesn't have the biggest or the best injury history. And Sermon's just a rookie. We haven't really seen him outside of, a couple of preseason games. So, you never know. You never know with Kyle Shanahan or his dad was the same way. He would just find a new running back each year and would turn him into a great fantasy player. It could be Hasty this year for sure. This should be our final pick. That's not a kicker or a defense because this is 15 rounds. So there are a couple of sleepers I still like. DeMarcus Robinson was just someone I was going to consider. So you're on the clock.
I'm going to take Justin Jackson, but he's actually Larry Roundtree, which is something you've done a few times. Again, need a running back with upside. The Chargers have a much better offensive line, and they need someone to pair with Eckler. Justin Jackson was good last year at times, couldn't stay healthy. Joshua Kelly didn't show a lot, and Larry Roundtree's looked good this preseason. So I'm happy, whether this is Jackson or Roundtree, I'm happy to take one of the Chargers handcuffs at this point.
Yeah, that's for sure. Roundtree's look pretty good, and they apparently like him quite a bit. It's interesting to see DeMarcus Robinson go before Hardman. I have not seen that yet, but maybe I guess people are catching up to the fact that I think Robinson's a better player than Hardman. So I'm going to make my final non-kicker, non-defense pick. It's going to be KJ Hamler, who had a phenomenal week 1 of the preseason. And, with Cortland Sutton, I don't expect him to play the full season. He's coming off a torn ACL. I don't think he's 100% yet. He made some good plays in the final preseason game, but I don't know if that's going to hold up. And if he goes down, Hamler is going to have a big year. I think he's super talented. It's the second season. Now he has experience. He's a better quarterback. Teddy Bridgewater has turned, receivers into good fantasy players. I mean, look at last year with DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson. So Hamler is someone I'm interested in around this range.
Yeah, I like taking a late flyer on him. He's a receiver that would have been on my board at this point. I needed more running back talent at this point in the draft, just because I don't have a lot of consistency outside my top 3 players. But I like Hamler a lot. I think he could easily turn into a top 3 receiver on that roster. I mean, before last season, a lot of people thought, hey, like, this guy's a good sleeper. He's going to be a good speed threat. And then he got hurt. So, he was a second-round pick less than 2 years ago. So he's got a good chance.
That's true. I feel like the second-year receivers kind of like lose some of their luster because people forget about them and they focus on the rookies. And I think that just gives you good value. So I'm making my defense pick here. And we're going to see who's available. So, I'm looking at San Francisco. They play Detroit week 1. It just seems like an easy defensive pick. They're getting Nick Bosa back from injury and a bunch of other guys. And the Niners defense is still one of the best in the NFL. Nick Bosa, by the way, off the top 100 list. I couldn't believe it. When I was trying to project my top 10, I had Nick Bosa there. And I got to 11 players. I'm like, wait a second, who's not going to be in the top 100, like let alone the top 10? And I was like, I guess it's Nick Bosa because he missed most of last year, or like all but one game, which, I can understand penalizing someone for that. But McCaffrey was still 31. So it's like, or around 31, I think. So like, yeah, I don't understand that at all, but whatever.
Yeah. It didn't make sense to me. Having McCaffrey, I think he was like 41, maybe. Like it was. Okay. Yeah, it was silly that he was that high, and Nick Bosa is not even on the list. I don't understand what methodology they quite use. I know they pull players, but they have to pull a certain amount of them, and then I don't know. There's always some weird ones on there, and I'm sure it depends on what selection of players. Like, are you pulling more defensive linemen this year? Does that mean that offensive tackles are going to be higher or whatnot? So. I don't know why Nick Bosa wasn't on that list or why McCaffrey was that high.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me. So you want to talk about why you chose Tampa's defense?
It boils down to I was definitely going to take Denver, and they went a pick before me, and I didn't have any other plans. So I just took Tampa.
Nice.
That is literally that was my entire plan.
Well, I mean, they're bringing back all their starters. I think I saw the stat saying they're the first team to return, the first Super Bowl champion to return all their starters since the Raiders in the 70s. So it's they should be good. So you took let's scroll down here, Matt Prater with your last pick. So I dome team, right?
Yep, dome team, good offense. Matt Prater has a big leg. Those are the three things. And also, I wasn't able to draft him yesterday, so this is my making up for that. And I'm pretty sure the same thing happened to me last year. I was going to draft Matt Prater, and someone else took him from me. So that tends to happen. I'm always targeting Matt Prater.
Well, I'm always targeting Tristan Vizcaino. And John Paul took him at 1502. He's kind of stealing my thunder there. So I have to find another troll kicker to draft. So I'm kind of in a pickle here for my final pick. We'll see what happens. We'll see who's available for kickers. So I scroll down at the bottom. I'm going to go with the other Charger kicker, Ty Long. Seems like a good strategy to me to take backup Charger kickers.
Yeah, I think that is a good strategy. Who is the Chargers kicker now? Because Michael Badgley got cut today.
It's a good question. And, we're supposed to provide fantasy football analysis. And I'm going to say that I don't care because kickers are pointless, and you could just pick up one on a good team and just go with it. Dr. Feelbad didn't even take a kicker. So that's the strategy I like. I know some commissioners force you to do it, and that's whatever. So when that happens, I just take a troll kicker. Sometime one year I drafted some guy who used to be in our league as the kicker. So that's something I like to do. So let's go over our teams, and then we'll review each other team. If you have any questions, you can post it, and then we'll look at it after we review every other team. So I went 3 running backs in the first 4 rounds. It's something I'm going to try to do in all my leagues. I haven't drafted yet, but my first draft is coming up on Thursday. Eckler and half-PPR seems like a no-brainer at 10. Sanders is underrated, I think, and then Mike Davis is going to catch a ton of passes. I like my depth with Tyson Williams and Alexander Madison. Neither is a starter, but they both have huge upside. And then I think my receiving core is pretty deep for not taking 2 in the first 4 rounds. Hopkins is a great start, I think, and then Claypool, Brown, Callaway, Chark. They're all. I'm a big fan of all of them. I'm weaker at quarterback, but Winston has big upside, and that's something I can rotate it. Like if Winston has a bad matchup, I can pick up another quarterback. It's like no big deal. I once won a league with Eli Manning and Daniel Jones as my 3 quarterbacks in the playoffs. So it's something you can do through matchups. And Goddard went way too late. So I'm a big fan of my team. So do you want to talk about yours?
Yeah, I like my team. I think the top of my team looks really good. I mean, between Chubb, Edwards-Helaire, and Devin Singletary, I like my top 3 backs. Top 3 receivers, Robinson, Kupp, Beckham. Those are 2 really good units. And then I have a top 5 quarterback and top 5 tight end in Murray and Thomas. After that, my depth gets a little shakier at running back. I'm relying on J.D. McKissick to really emerge as a big-time pass catcher again, just to give myself better depth there. And then Gabe Davis, I think, is a great 4th receiver, so I don't have a problem with that. And Amon-Ra St. Brown's a good upside swing. So I like this team. If Nick Chubb or one of my top receivers or Clyde Edwards-Helaire goes down, this team would be very thin. So that's my one worry about it. And that's why if you're going to take a quarterback early or a tight end early, that's fine. But taking both in the first 8 rounds doesn't work out too well. I actually waited until the 15th round to take a quarterback yesterday. And that didn't go well, but it didn't go as bad as possible. I got Ben Roethlisberger. That could pan out. And like you said, if you end up in trouble at quarterback, you can just stream things. So as nice as it is to have Kyler Murray, if I were to have replaced him with a guy like Julio Jones, Kareem Hunt, or Chase Claypool, and replaced maybe JaMychal Hasty with the best running back or receiver on the board, I think this team would look a lot stronger to me.
I like your team. What you're saying about running back depth, if one of those 2 guys gets hurt is definitely true. But I think you could say that about most teams. We're going to talk about each other team, but most teams are not going to have good running back depth for sure. And if you have like only one spot to fill, I think you can be okay. As long as you can get that guy on the waiver wire, which is not a guarantee. But I like your team overall. But I agree. I think the right move is to take a running back over the quarterback. But Kyler Murray is going to give you huge upside. So talk about team 1, Dan the Man. So he kind of did what you did, except inverse. He went tight end in the 5th round, quarterback in the 8th round. And as a result, he has weak depth at running back. McCaffrey and Mixon's good start, but then he has Tevin Coleman, Tony Jones, Mark Ingram. That's pretty underwhelming. Like Coleman may not be the starter. Jones is the backup, and Ingram, I'm kind of surprised he's still on the roster, to be honest. So that running back depth is looking pretty bleak. His receiving core is definitely better with AJ Brown, Deante Johnson. I think that's great. Galladay is a good 3rd if he can stay healthy. Jamar Chase is someone I would take later, just because he's dropped everything. He's finished the preseason with 4 drops and 1 catch. It's kind of crazy. But Jacoby Myers is someone I was hoping to get as well. So this team is not that good because of the running back depth issues, but it's not terrible either because he has good upside elsewhere.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Joe Mixon, so I like this team a little bit less, just because I think they only have 1 strong running back. Mixon, as good as he can be, the offensive line's not there, and he struggled with health. So concerns about that there. I do like the receiving core a lot, though. I think Jacoby Myers in the 9th round is a very, very good value there. And he's a guy I'd be comfortable with playing ahead of Kenny Galladay, depending on the matchup, and, of course, depending on how healthy Galladay is, too. But I like the receiving core options. I like the quarterback situation. Not a big fan of Joe Mixon as the 2nd running back. And Kyle Pitts, I think he's going to be really good, but I'm not willing to take a gamble on a tight end that early. If I'm taking a tight end early, it's got to be one of the big 3.
Yeah, about Mixon, I'm not like super high on him either, but I guess I'm used to seeing him go earlier mid second round, and to see him go early third round, I think that kind of changed a little bit for me. So I'm not a fan of him early, but like third round, I think it's okay to take him. It's just but I agree with you for the most part. John Paul, team two, great start to his running back core with Cook, Montgomery, and Carson. But then it kind of fell apart, I think. So Amari Cooper is his first receiver. If he's healthy, that could work out. But like he's banged up. Dak Prescott's not 100%, and he went with Prescott in 7th round, which I think is too early for an injured quarterback. Lockett's a fine pick, but T Higgins, like Joe Burrow doesn't look like he's 100%. He played 3 snaps for some reason through 1 pass in the preseason. Like, why even play him at that point? I don't understand what they're doing. Sony Michel in the 8th round could pan out, but then again, he could just do nothing for him. I think this team is looking like pretty average. Again, I don't hate this team, but I'm not a big fan either.
Yeah, I think average is a good assessment of it. I like the running back core a lot. The top 3 are going to be really good. And, I think one of Sony Michel and Ty Johnson should work their way into a rotation. It's not guaranteed, but I like it enough. The receiving core, I would have just gone in different directions with each pick more than anything else. Like, I'm not big on Cooper there. I would probably take Deante Johnson. I like Tyler Lockett, so I'm fine with that. Like you said, I'm not big on T. Higgins. I did like Marvin Jones and Curtis Samuel if he can get healthy. Those are 2 guys I targeted frequently last year because they're classic undervalued receivers that you can play in good matchups. So I think those will help this team out. But yeah, I think it's largely average just because there's not a ton of really strong receiving options, I don't think.
Yeah. So team 3, power in the cake. I like the team quite a bit. His running back core is pretty, is a lot of depth, I think, to it with Kamara, Gus Edwards, and then one of the running backs for Denver. I should say that I wouldn't do that. I think that's like the one mistake this guy made. I wouldn't take both Williams and Gordon because that means that, while like one of your picks is going to pan out, the other one is a complete waste. So I would just try to avoid that. And then he's also drafted Jerry Jeudy from the same team. So that's something you should avoid as well. I should say that I guess I like the players more than, than what he did like drafting from the same team. So, I like Keenan Allen, Jerry Jeudy, and then Robbie Anderson as a third receiver. But the fact that he took 3 Denver players kind of ruins it a little bit for me. So, I said I like the team a lot at first glance, but then like I consider it that he took 3 Denver players in a row. I don't think you should do that.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I do like the strategy though, and this is what he literally did exactly what I did yesterday. He went with Ben Roethlisberger in the 15th round as his only quarterback, so he was able to load up at running back and receivers. I think if you replace the Melvin Gordon pick with anyone else at that point, like say take Devin Singletary or Ronald Jones, put them in there instead, the upside of this team is raised. And then you can say like, all right, Javonte Williams and Jerry Jeudy together. Yeah, that may not be ideal, but they're still at least 2 very talented players. But I think having all 3 of them is not a strategy I would take. But the rest of the picks I really like. And that running back core of Kamara, Edwards, Javonte Williams, and then James White in a PPR league, I really like that. So I would kind of copycat what happened at running back, except for Melvin Gordon here.
Yeah, I think if he goes like Galladay instead of Gordon, and then goes Devin Singletary around 7, I think that team looks pretty great. Yeah. So all right, team 4 WB. I mean, this is a dreadful team. I think he went with 3 quarterbacks and like not a good strategy. I'm guessing this is auto draft. Michael Thomas is someone you shouldn't take because he's going to be on the PUP list. You should not draft Zach Moss over Devin Singletary. Should not draft Tyler Boyd in the 9th round because he's the 3rd receiver on a bad offense or potentially bad offense. And I'm not a fan of Darrell Henderson in the 4th round. So, this is not a good team, but I assume it's auto pick.
Yeah, this has to be auto pick. Only 3 receivers were selected, and I don't think anyone would do that normally. So, yeah, I like Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor, and I'm okay with Darren Waller earlier. But then after that, this goes completely haywire. The 3 quarterbacks. The funny thing is, these are all guys I'd be comfortable starting in a game, but I would not take 3 of them. I would take 1 of them. So, I won't waste any more time on this one. This looks like a classic auto pick, loving the quarterback position.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so moving on to Team Five, Randy Marsh. Love that name. So running back depth here is questionable. So good start with Elliott, but then Miles Gaskin is only going to play half the snaps at the very most in Miami. Ronald Jones. There's three running backs in Tampa, so I would not take one in round 7. And then Jamal Williams, he's someone you could start in week 1 because Swift may not be available. But then after that, like, what do you do? So this running back depth looks pretty bad to me, which is weird because he didn't take a quarterback or a tight end in the first 6 rounds. Usually, if you go running backs and receivers, you're better in your running back depth. That's not the case. I should say though, his receiving core looks phenomenal though, with Metcalf, McLaurin, Godwin, Ayuk. Those guys are great, and plus I like DeMarcus Robinson in the 13th round. I like Stafford like as a starter in the 10th round, and then Hawkinson, he's fine in the 8th round. So his team looks good outside of the running back depth, which looks pretty bleak.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think if you change Gaskin to Kareem Hunt, for me, this team's a lot different because I can forgive the Ronald Jones pick. I think he has the most upside of the 3 backs in Tampa. I know they'll probably use a system, but Jones was really coming on at the end of the regular season before he got hurt ahead of the playoffs. So if he can stay healthy, I think he's fine. But yeah, Gaskin, I have no interest in that committee in Miami because Brian Flores has shown an ability to just identify quality running backs that just kind of come out of nowhere and produce. Like Salvin Ahmed did that last year. And he has Malcolm Brown in there now. So I think that's going to be a 3-headed behemoth that any week the guy will be different. And I get that Tampa Bay could be a little bit of the same, but at least I think Ronald Jones is going to probably be the clubhouse leader there. But yeah, I like the receiving core, and I like the Matthew Stafford pick in the 10th round. That's a really good value, and he's going to be a really solid fantasy player this year. So I like this team. I would just get a better RB2, and I think it'd be fine.
Yeah, I think for me, if I think I would change, like if you really want McLaurin in the 3rd round, that's fine. But like what I would do is I would take out either McLaurin or Godwin, probably Godwin, and replace him with Javonte Williams. And then in the 5th round, maybe get a receiver there. And then in the 6th round, go running back again, like maybe not Melvin Gordon, or like probably actually 7th round, I would take Devin Singletary. I think that would look a lot better, I feel like. All right, Team 7, ET. This running back depth is, again, it's sketchy, although he has 2 good ones with Aaron Jones and James Robinson. But then after that, I think he went way too early in Michael Carter, as we discussed earlier. And then Tony Pollard, Xavier Jones, like you don't know what you're going to get with them. But the rest of his teams looks good. I think Calvin Ridley, Mike Evans, Deebo Samuel, Corey Davis, that's a great receiving core. And then he has 2 good sleepers with Elijah Moore and Byron Pringle. Tom Brady is, I think I would have taken him in round 9 if he had gotten to me. I think the one mistake ET made was taking Mark Andrews in the 5th round. I think if you go Kareem Hunt or Chase Edmonds there, I think this team looks a lot better. And then you could probably go tight end if you really want one early in round 6 or 7. So overall, a good team, but I think taking Andrews really cost them.
Yeah, I'm just not that high on Andrews. I think he's roughly the same as like Logan Thomas or TJ Hawkinson. So I don't know why he's going significantly earlier than them. Yeah, I think those 5th and 6th round are the 2 ones that stand out to me as what I would change in this draft. And I have some bearing of bad news about Xavier Jones. He got cut today. So
yeah,
that is he looked like a great sleeper until the Sony Michel trade. And now I think he was waived with an injury designation. So I don't know if that means he goes on IR. I have trouble understanding the language there, but that was tough because I have Xavier Jones in a couple best ball leagues.
Yeah, I think the writing was on the wall in the final preseason game when he got all the carries. It's like not a good sign. It looked like Jake Funk beat him, which is kind of surprising to me because I thought he looked better than Jake Funk, at least in the games, like maybe not in practice. All right, so teammate Skivvies 19. I think this is this is a pretty good team, I think. Saquon Barkley, Raheem Mostert, Damian Harris. That's a great running back core. Not too much depth. He only has 4 running backs on the roster in the first 14 rounds at least. So, but I like Darrell Williams as a sleeper because you never know what's going to happen. with Edwards-Helaire. And then his receiving core it looks great as well. Jefferson, Julio Jones, Cortland Sutton. Assuming Sutton can stay healthy. But I think he has good depth too with Juju, Mike Williams, Darnell Mooney, even Devontae Parker. I think is pretty underrated at this point. So I like to see him raw. He even has Aaron Rodgers as quarterback, so it's not like he waited until the end to get like a Winston or a Stafford. Aaron Rodgers is one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL for fantasy, and to have a great running back, a great trio running back, and great depth of receiver, and have a good quarterback. I think this is one of the best teams that we've seen.
Yeah, I think this is one of the best as well. I mean, the running back depth, yeah, there are only 4 of them, but I feel like you're going to get by with the top 3. And then Darrell Williams was the guy I wanted. He actually took a lot of guys I wanted. All the way from Cortland Sutton through Darrell Williams were guys I was targeting with my respective picks, but either they did not get to me or I passed on them for another option, and then they went off the board soon after. So I like this draft strategy here. The players that the teammate was targeting worked out pretty well. And, if Saquon Barkley can get it and stay healthy, then this team's going to be really, really good. So, this is one of the best ones in this draft.
Yeah, so we go from one of the best to one of the worst. And Team 9, which we talked about before, was auto drafting. Real quick, I mean, he didn't take a running back until the 4th round. Actually, his running back core is like not that bad considering, but it's it's not top heavy at all. Like I don't like Jacobs or Hunt as a 2. I like Hunt as a 3 more, but still, he took 2 quarterbacks. Don't do that, especially if you draft one early. Like if you take Patrick Mahomes in the 3rd round, there's no reason to take another quarterback. And then he also took Kelsey in the 2nd round. So like it's gonna produce for him, but still, like the receiving depth looks pretty bad. He only took 4 receivers, and his number 3 is Brandon Cooks. 4th is McCole Hardman. This looks pretty bad.
Sorry, I turned my flashlight on my phone on. I don't even know how it is in my face. But yeah, there was this guy took 3 quarterbacks actually, because he took Burrow in the 15th round. Again, I think the computer almost like, this is an auto draft. We're taking 3 quarterbacks. That's like this website lets you know that, I guess. But yeah, I agree with you. You can't wait till the 4th round to take a running back and expect to have anything more than maybe an RB2, and maybe Jacobs is that, but all of his guys in the running back room have someone else that's either fighting for time or ahead of them, because you're looking, Jacobs has Kenyon Drake, Hunt is behind Chubb, Dylan is behind Jones, Connor's behind Edmonds, and then David Johnson, who the hell knows what Houston is doing in the running back room. So, I mean, that they all have some upside, but their floors are very low. So if they all crash, this team will fall apart very quickly.
Yeah, that's for sure. All right. So Team 11, 2 for flinching. He's someone who drafts with us a lot. I recognize that name. So I think he may have been experimenting here because he didn't take a running back until round 4, which is something he should do. So we have to look at his running back core, and he went with Swift, Edmonds, Stevenson, Drake, Hines, and then Bernard. I mean, obviously the running back core doesn't look good because Swift is hurt. Like if Swift are healthy, I think it will look a lot better. But week 1, like what's he doing? He's starting Edmonds, obviously. And then what? Like Nyheim Hines, like you can't really start Stevenson this early. Kenny and Drake, I don't think you can start him either. I think it's Hines probably, or maybe Gio Bernard against Dallas's defense, but still that looks pretty bad. But I mean, at receiver he has Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, and then he has George Kittle. So like those guys are going to carry his team. It's just the running back core that looks pretty bleak.
Yeah, I think like you said, if DeAndre Swift is healthy, then this team feels a lot different. But yeah, you're going to have to mix and match at the running back position. So, maybe Stevenson pans out and becomes like a hammer to play with Damian Harris. Maybe you can get by with Hines and Drake and Bernard in some rotation. But yeah, I think you have to take a running back again before the 4th round. And if you replace Stephon Diggs with someone like Edwards-Helaire, Taylor, Gus Edwards, or David Montgomery, I think this team looks a lot better. And granted, you'd be losing Diggs, but you get a mid-round receiver, and that suddenly doesn't look so bad.
Yeah. All right. Last team, Dr. Feelbad, number 12. I have a feeling that he started auto drafting around. Actually, no, I shouldn't say that because he didn't go quarterback. But I would say I like his first, or at least 7 of his 8 first picks a lot. So he started Gibson and then Harris, and then with Lamb, Woods, and then Sermon, Moore. So I like those picks. I'm not a fan of Fournette because the Tampa has 3 running backs, and then Chenault I like. So like of those 8 picks, I like 7 a lot, and his running back receiving cores look pretty deep. But then I didn't like some of his later picks, like Jalen Waddle is he's going to be a gimmicky player in his rookie year. Lindsey, I wouldn't touch Houston's running back core at all unless someone gets hurt. And then he took 2 quarterbacks and 2 tight ends, so I'm not a fan of that either. But I think this team did very well at the start. But I wonder if he went like auto draft starting around 12 or something.
Yeah, I think it's possible. If this person didn't take 2 tight ends and 2 quarterbacks, I would really like this draft. Like, I could forgive. Like, I'm not huge on Jalen Waddle. I think, like you said, it's going to be gimmicky. It's going to be hard to predict when he has big games. It'll be a lot of boomer bust, and I'm not sold on Trey Sermon that early. Like, he might end up being the starter, and I could look wrong, but it's the Shanahan back thing. Like, you just don't know who it's going to be on a weekly basis. So why not wait for the later ones? But I mean, the first 4 picks look really, really good. I love getting Antonio Gibson, CeeDee Lamb, and Robert Woods, especially. I think that core can carry a good team. I think with more depth late, this team would be good. So I would love to see what would happen if Gesicki and Lawrence were a running back at a tight end.
Yeah, I agree. We had a couple questions. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire over Jonathan Taylor. I think that with Jonathan Taylor has some. I guess they both have concerns. So with Edwards-Helaire, after week 1 last year, he struggled. But then again, Kansas City's offensive line was a disaster last year. They really improved it a lot. And playing in that offense, he's going to have a ton of scoring opportunities. So I would go with Edwards-Helaire over Taylor, who has, the Colts have offensive line issues right now. Carson Wentz may not be healthy. We don't know. So yeah, I think Edwards-Helaire over Taylor. What do you think?
Yeah, I do too. I think, I like Taylor as a player a lot. And when the Colts offensive line is healthy, he'll be good and he'll be relied on. But if Wentz can't get healthy, you've got Jacob Eason in a quarterback, and teams are going to be able to stack the box against Taylor as the number 1 threat there. And T.Y. Hilton's now out with some sort of disc injury. So, he's been regressing in recent years, but he's no longer there to take the top off the defense. So you'd have to rely a lot on the passing game to, prove to be functional early on. So I'm just worried about that. So I prefer Edwards-Helaire playing in a better offense, and, he'll have a lot of opportunities. I think the Chiefs only have 3 running backs, and one of them is Jerick McKinnon, who has never been able to stay healthy or be productive. So I'm happy to take Edwards-Helaire over Taylor.
Okay, and speaking of Hilton, does T.Y. Hilton have any trade value, or is it a complete drop and throw him in on the IR spot? I don't know if he had much value when he was healthy. He's kind of a declining player. I know he had more upside with Carson Wentz, but Carson Wentz is banged up. The offensive line's an issue, so Wentz wouldn't necessarily have the time to find Hilton downfield. So he was not someone I was interested in to begin with. And now with this injury, it just makes him pretty worthless. So yeah, I think you just drop him.
Yeah, I would probably drop him. Like maybe if you think he's going to be back quick and you really need receiver help, you could stash him on the IR. But I think you're probably going to have better options for the IR spot. So definitely no trade value, though. It's just a matter of, do you want to keep him or do you want to drop him? And depending on what I have, I might lean towards dropping him.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. That's it for this week. In 2 days, on Thursday, we have a real draft for the WalterFootball.com, official league that Charlie runs. So going to try to do a live stream for that. So check that out. But I guess otherwise, do you have anything to plug?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Camenker. I've tried to tweet out some of my work and some of my fantasy stuff and NFL coverage over the last few weeks. And you can check out sportingnews.com. We have coverage. I have a full cuts tracker up there. And we have plenty of Cam Newton content up too, explanations of why he was cut, and just, stuff about his Instagram post after being cut. So anything you want to know about Cam Newton that we know is up on sportingnews.com. So feel free to check that out. And yeah, follow me on Twitter, and you'll see more football stuff throughout the season because regular season's almost here.
Yeah, 1 week from now, we're going to be doing our week 1 NFL picks. So I'm looking forward to that for sure. So, check us out at walterfootball.com for tons of content as always. And once again, please hit like, subscribe, share this video, comment below. Like I said before, we have a link to our merch store in the description. So check that out if you want to support the show. But otherwise, I will talk to you next week when we do our week 1 picks.
All right. Sounds good. I'll talk to you then.